Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up. Our special guest today is none other than Séan McCann and Andrea Aragon, and they're here to share with us their new book, One Good Reason, a memoir of addiction and recovery, music and love. So are you or someone you know struggling with recovery? Today's discussion is going to be an inspiration. Now, many of you know Séan McCann. He's a renowned mental health, addiction, and recovery advocate, an Order of Canada's recipient for his advocacy, and those living with mental health and addiction issues. He has spent the past 7 years touring the country as a speaker while singing and sharing his story with frontline workers, teachers, students, patients, inmates, veterans, and anyone who has been affected by addiction or abuse. After drinking heavily for over 30 years to numb the pain of childhood abuse and hiding his dark secret in the drinking songs of one of Canada's most iconic bands, Great Big Sea, today Séan is sober, he's a survivor, and he has found his true voice. Now, Andrea Aragon and Séan found each other in 2002. Andrea was all too familiar with the alcoholism and trauma from her father that had been bottled up as depression, eating disorders, a suicide attempt, and her own heavy drinking. And she was divorced by the time she was 26 years old. She was broken but resilient, and depending on what you believe, was destined to meet Séan. So let's welcome to the show Séan McCann and Andrea Aragon.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You know, what a delight it is to have you both here. And I've got to tell you, once I picked up your book, I could not put it down. It really draws the reader in. And I think why you're having such great success with it is that people can really relate to your story in one capacity or another.
Yeah, thanks for reading it. And we really just wanted to share as openly and honestly our experience as we could. I've learned as an addict, I've been in recovery for 9 years, but I've learned that these truths, when shared openly and really directly, can have really positive impacts on people's lives, and impacts that last for a long time. So we didn't want to mince words. To cut to the chase, we wanted to be very clear with people, and we hope it really helps people.
Yeah, and we also wanted to make sure that we got in there a dual narrative of, Séan as the addict going through that and what led up to that, his addiction, and what I had to go through as a partner of an addict and then someone in recovery. Because there are a lot of people out there who are not addicts themselves, but their partners are or their loved ones are, and they have a voice, and their what they go through is just as important as what the addict goes through. That was in our opinion too.
Yeah, for sure. It would have been incomplete if it was just me.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of times you may hear the viewpoint of the addict, not so much of the family that's going through it, and just what that struggle and journey is as well, because, there's a lot of growth that happens with a family during recovery.
Yeah, there's not what's happening to and with the person in recovery or the addict is not happening just to them, as you just said. It's happening to all of us that are in their orbit, and it's really important to give voice to that, because our success as family members is just as important as their success. Because if you want to stay as a cohesive unit, you have to, as you said, grow together and just grow in general. Séan and I had to learn who we were again, not being people who drank together, because that's how we met, was, wildly fun, partying out every night kind of thing. And we had to learn who we were as a couple, not doing that and not having that with us. So yeah, it's a really important piece of the puzzle, and that's exactly what it is. It's a piece. It's not just What?
I just said that I'm laughing because I'm thinking this is a great advice. Like, don't make dating decisions when you're drinking. When you're drunk, it can lead to marriage. Yeah. There's consequences.
Well, you got lucky, right? Because you have Andrea, right?
We got lucky. Yeah, we are a one-night stand. Was it someone said marriage is a one-night stand that never ends? I did get lucky, and I'm very grateful. And we'll be this forever. It's just, but, I just did think it was maybe, we were, not everyone is that lucky. I just thought it was funny.
That is kind of funny if you think about it.
Yeah, we didn't meet soberly, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm sure lots of relationships start that way.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I love your story because for the both of you, it really is a true romance story throughout all of it, because it does take true love to really stick in there when things are going as tough as they are. And before we get too far down the road, I would like to explore both your childhood. So just readers get and our listeners get a sense of what it was like growing up for both of you.
Yeah, I'm from Newfoundland, which is an island off the coast of Canada in the North Atlantic. And it's Irish, English, settled, pub culture, fishing outpost, essentially, from the old world. And I was on the Catholic side of that. And for generations, our family were highly indoctrinated Catholics and were very active in the church. So my background is Irish Catholic drinking culture. And I think as I tried to figure out, I believe everyone drinks for a reason. And I think part of the challenge of remaining in a successful recovery is to coming to terms with your truth and really figuring out what that reason was. And in my case, it was a result of a sexual assault by my parish priest when I was a teenager. And, that was a hard thing to face and come to terms with, but eventually I did. But, I often wondered, how could this happen? There was a cultural aspect to it. I was baptized at 4 days of old. It wasn't a choice I made. It was a choice made for me. And I think that if I've learned one thing, it's that there's great danger in abandoning reason. And that there's faith is, even though as powerful a weapon as it can be in recovery, it can also be used against people because people exploit it. And, when you see adults in charge of children in mass amounts, and when you give those people absolute power, you should expect that predators will go there.
Yeah, without a doubt.
For me, I think it's really important to say, though, that was part of the culture of Newfoundland. And specifically your family's culture. That's part of,
there's the Irish culture of drinking, which coincides with Catholicism. And Catholicism, like many religions, big religions, organized religions, rely on indoctrination and from birth. Yeah. And I just wanted to point out in the book, I'm trying to explain how this could happen to a child. Yeah, yeah. And that's how it happens. Yeah. And what's interesting is I was raised Catholic as well, just to get into my history. But I did not have that kind of experience at all. We didn't have that much indoctrination, as you call it, into the Catholic Church. I did my sacraments, but it was just like taking a driver's test for God's but you weren't as good at it as we were. We were hard. We did it all. I believed every bit of it. I did everything. Right. 100%.
True. And that's what I think is really important to show that difference, because for somebody like me, it was really hard for me to understand how this priest had all of your attention and all of your family's attention. Well, I had priests in my life, but they were never friends or friends of the family or, anything.
Our priest was all powerful, but I honestly went through my teenage years believing, and my childhood years believing that my sins were responsible for the death of Jesus Christ. We were taught to believe that. We believed it. And that's a lot of power to hold over somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be very stressful for a child.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember taking our kids our kids were in a private school in St. John's, Newfoundland, where we're from, and there's a church next door, and they were taken to the church as they were learning different religions. And, I remember my kid was really traumatized by it because he walked in and there was a mission, what we call a mission cross in the church, this huge cross, and It was Jesus on the cross, but it was very bloody and graphic. And I grew up with that, and we were desensitized to those very horrific images. Our kids weren't baptized in the religion, and they went and saw this, and they were blown away by it, horrified by it. And again, it just, you become desensitized when you grow up with that. But once you step out of yourself and look at it objectively, you can see why someone would be disturbed by those kinds of images. And
for my part, my history is I'm from the States. I'm from Minnesota, and my family dynamic was such that my dad was a Vietnam vet who has PTSD, and as a result drank quite a bit. I would now call him an alcoholic. I didn't back then because I didn't think anything of it, because that was my normal. And I had a mom who was pretty detached and basically just wanted everything to be fine. So my childhood I thought it was normal, but it was rife with lots of angry outbursts from my dad, and I lived in some fear about all of that, and an aloof, non-detached mother, and an older sister who was trying to parent me. So I learned pretty quickly how to enable an alcoholic with my dad, and how to appease him, and how to fly under the radar pretty quick. And it manifested in a lot of different ways with me, with an eating disorder and some cutting that I did. And then I flew the coop and went to Colorado, and that's where I ended up meeting Sean.
Well, what a great, you look at how the two of you came together, and in your book, you outline it very well.
Are you talking about our one night stand?
Well, you guys really, let's put it this way. So when you first met, was it love at first sight?
For me, I was calling him Mr. Yellow Shirt, for God's sakes. I was smitten. I don't know that I was in love, but I was certainly in lust.
Uh-huh.
And Sean was just drinking. He was. No, I say that.
No, there was a great attraction there, and they say marriage is the one night stand that never ends.
You already said that.
Did I say that? And it's true. Sometimes if you're lucky, it's true.
Right.
And I think we were lucky. We ended up being the right people for each other, I think. And we've obviously had our histories and our pasts and our problems. And I think we were, I think everybody does that. Everyone has their problems. We know that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But not everyone's lucky enough to find the right person to help you get through it for your life.
Who's willing to walk through those problems with you.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't have a faith anymore or belief system that way, but I do believe that this was something that was fated in a sense, or I certainly was lucky in that sense to fallen into this beautiful trap.
Well, and I just find your story so fascinating, because I know you share about, obviously you're part of an iconic band, and just that the culture of the band, that must have been really difficult at the time. It's always fun drinking when it's fun, and then at some point it stops being fun.
Yeah, we did a lot of touring in America and stuff, but I think in Canada we were a pretty big, really big band. And we were the college circuit party band, a lot of booze and Newfoundland culture. In America, you have New Orleans and Vegas. In Canada, we have St. John's, which is my hometown, where Canadians go to get their party on, and that's where we came from. And so it was a really, there was no taboos. There was no downside for us to be drinking every day in large amounts. Our job was to bring Saturday night to Monday night. Every day was Saturday for us. So as an alcoholic, being in the band I was in, it was almost like winning a lottery. There was always, every day was just party on.
Yeah. So when that stopped, it was like that last tour that you had to do was daunting, because you did it sober.
Yeah, I did the last one sober. That was in retrospect, that was probably a wrong decision, but I foolishly believed that, that I would change the culture of the band. but that's not the case. But I mean, I had the sense to recognize that eventually, and at the end of the tour, I got off the bus.
Yeah.
And that wasn't an easy decision. We made a lot of money at what we did, and but you know, I've learned money isn't everything. It's not more important than your health. It never is. And the healthy place for me to be was not there.
Yeah.
And I'm 9 years sober now, which matters most.
Well, congratulations. That is a big deal. And I know for people, because right now, I mean, people are really struggling in many different ways. You hear that alcoholism's up, and, you know, there's just a lot of different issues that people are confronted with, you know, especially with the type of isolation we've been dealing with. Why do you think your book is more important now than ever for people?
Because people are going, like, this is arguably the hardest time. Yeah. You know, our book, we wrote our book for people going through a hard time. And I don't think it gets much harder than this on a global level.
Yeah.
And we did have the option to not release the book because it was coming out. We knew we had a national tour of Canada booked. We'd spent a year preparing for the release of the book and all the cool things we were going to do together. And I hope we get to do them. But they all went away. All the national tour of bookstores and speaking events all shut down. And we were given the option to postpone and delay the release until it was over. Which at the time, I think we were thinking it might be a month or two.
Yeah, it's summer.
But we decided it would probably be more beneficial, particularly beneficial now when people are struggling. And I mean, when things did shut down up here, liquor stores were deemed to be essential services, which kind of threw me for a loop. And but our equivalent of Dr. Fauci in America, her name is Dr. Tam here, by way of explanation, came out and said that, yeah, we're leaving them open as essential services because we have a greater dependency problem in this country than we're willing to admit. And we can't afford to trigger that problem in the middle of COVID. Our hospitals just can't take what the demand on detox. If we pull the booze now,
yeah,
our hospitals will be overrun by people detoxing. So we couldn't let it happen. That was a very sobering statement for me to hear. But it's the truth, and it's science. You know, It's like we do drink too much as a nation.
We needed people to see that if, you know, the guy from Great Big Sea, you know, the biggest party band in Canada, arguably, can get sober and stay sober through doing some really hard work and a lot of introspection. And if he can make it through and still have his marriage intact, you know, if I can make it through and still have my husband alive, if we can do it, for certainly you can do it. So we thought it was really important to show all the ugly that we had to go through and that we worked through in order to see the light at the end and let people know that stick in, do the hard work. We call it walking through the fire, you know, face the ugly things that you have to face the demons, face the not so pretty things of you so that you can get to sobriety or get to the healthy place in you and stay there, you know, not use alcohol so much as your dependency.
So, Sean, I've got a question here for you. Did you ever get the sense that maybe some of the band members were hoping that this was just a fad, or you just kind of fall off the wagon and go back to drinking, you know, or was it just a long haul? They knew that this is, you know, a new way of life for you.
No, I think you just hit the nail on the head there. That's exactly, I think, the perception. And in all fairness, I had tried and failed many times. So this was my failure was something they were used to. What they weren't used to was having a sober Sean around. And as I got like months and months into it, after a year sober, I imagined quite an annoyance because where I'd been kind of sedated for so long. And, you know, I was always a big contributor, a major songwriter in the band and did a lot backstage and stuff. I was always a very highly functioning alcoholic. But when I became sober, I started to say a lot more stuff. And I wanted to do more. I wanted the band to do more, to write more, to say more. And this caused a lot of conflict because, let's keep it simple. We're making money. Let's not do this. Let's just stick with the set list. keep doing the cheers, everyone. And I'm like, no, we can do more. So then we got into, then I became an annoyance. And that caused stress. And, there was no way to foresee that. But, and
I don't think that they wished your failure. I think that they expected your failure.
my failure would have been expected, and it would have been easier.
Oh, yes.
On all considered. It's when an object is in motion, they tend to stay in motion. And I bucked the trend in that situation. And, but the bus was rolling down the road it had always driven on, and I was trying to turn it around.
Yeah.
And that didn't go over well. So we came down to, there was a lot of bad feelings in the end. And at the end of the day, I was never closer to losing my sobriety than when I was on the bus. And at the end of the day, I made the right decision for myself, health-wise, and for my family. And I have no regrets about that.
Well, congratulations, for both of you, because I think sharing this story, it's just so courageous of both of you to do, especially during this time. And your story is so authentic and in some ways pretty raw and funny in other ways, and kind of like, wow, okay. It has people really thinking, going, I can kind of see a little bit of my life in this, and maybe I need to take a look at what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, there wasn't, we're not remarkable people. I mean, Sean was in a big band, but in all other respects, we're super normal. And so any of the challenges that we had, I'm sure other people have. And there was great power in that too, finding out that we weren't alone. So if you can see yourself in somebody else, that kind of helps you recognize that there is a path forward. You're not so stuck, because you're not alone. Somebody else has done this before, and maybe I can see what they've done. And that was part of our hope. We just want to put some hope out there for people. You can make it through these really dark places.
Everyone's capable of recovery, everyone. And people, when they ask how, the simple answer is perseverance. If I'm not successful because I'm special, and not at all. The only thing special about us for me was my access. I had greater access to all those vices. But I'm just a human being that had a drinking problem. I did the work. I didn't give up. And as a result, I'm sober.
Yeah, you faced your trauma.
Yeah, and the hardest thing to do is to face, I believe people drink and use drugs for reasons. The hardest thing about it is getting down to facing those reasons and dealing with them. And that people drink and use drugs to avoid that. That's the thing that we fear the most. But, when you face it and you survive it, and it's not as bad as you thought it was going to be, it's like any fear. You face them and you realize it was never as bad as you thought it was going to be. And I think that this book and the way I live my life now, I hope that it will inspire people to do that. To do that work, because most people just don't do it out of fear or because they think they're going to fail. And that's not the way it has to be. And it's not the way it generally is. We are able to do it. Every single person is able to do it. And if I can save one person from addiction, if I can bring him out of it, it's worth it. All of it.
Seeing somebody fail too is pretty powerful. Like you failed being sober several times, and seeing that, and then seeing that you were then eventually successful because you didn't give up. That's I think really pretty powerful too.
Failure's easy. It's when it's what you do when you fail. That's what's incredible. Yeah. That's the decision. That's your game changer there. And it's just everyone's able to get up and go again.
Yeah.
Every time. I failed so many times, but in the end, I'm here today because I just didn't stop.
So what do you think keeps you sober every day now?
Now I have many, the reasons are still the same, my wife and my family, and my health, but I don't have, I've learned, I guess maybe you're speaking to what do I do every day to stay sober? Is that your question?
Yes, pretty much.
So I do a lot of, every day I do something, I make myself, uncomfortable outdoors. I run in the snow, or I kayak, or I, go on extremely long walks, 30 kilometers in the woods. And I give myself an hour or so every day to be alone and physically active outside. And, unless it's a snowstorm, in which case I'll pick up my guitar and sit by the fire. But I give myself that alone time and let my thoughts be on life and on my life and let life work through me. And, in these particular days, that's really essential. That's been really helpful to me. And whenever I talk to people who are addicts, and there's any number of ways to stay sober and whatever works, but this is what works for me. I find my best self out there, either out there alone or in front of people telling my truth.
Andrea, what is it like for you? I mean, is there points where you kind of see yourself going back to maybe that codependent behavior? I know they call that in the recovery circles. Is that kind of something that you ever see? It's like, ooh, maybe I'm doing that. Or is that stuff that's long past? Because I think the thing is that I think it's helpful for listeners to understand what life could look like down the road.
For me, the codependency is long, long past. But it was a lot of work to get to that point. And it started with working on myself and recognizing what I needed and that I was enough and that I did deserve a good, happy life, healthy life. And that getting to that point was a lot of work. But going back to being a codependent is nothing that I can ever see myself being, because Sean and I have a relationship right now such that we're always talking. If there's so much honesty and truth in this house, whether if it's with me and Sean or us and the kids, there's zero secrets. It's all talking all the time. Even when nobody wants to talk, we force the issue.
Talk. All we do is talk.
But you can't, part of codependency for me was hiding, because if I could just make it okay and just fly under the radar, whether it was with my dad or with Sean, I didn't have to deal with any of the problems. Well, now let's bring the problem up. Let's talk about it. We're not going to walk away. I mean, we can simmer down if we're in a heated argument, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it until it's dead on the floor and I've kicked it around and we've swept it up and put it in the trash. So how's that analogy?
How's that for marriage?
For marriage.
It sounds like you take care of the problems head on. There's no problems in your household,
Yeah, well, and I think that's a really important piece to maintaining my sanity with his sobriety. He needs to hear where I'm at, and I need to hear where he's at. We can't live in secrets anymore. We've both spent half of our lives there, so we refuse to live in that.
Secrets are very dangerous things. I think they can kill you, and there's only one way to defeat a secret, and that's to share it. So, our house is secret-free.
Yep.
And always will be.
Well, I just have to think that your children have such a head start in life with having both of you as parents. I mean, being able to have this kind of openness in discussion, and I'm sure they're learning so much from that.
We hope so.
Yeah, it's a hard time to be a teenager. Our guys are 15 and 12, and but they won't be burdened by the things that I was burdened with. Certainly, indoctrination in these things.
We'll torment them with
we'll
other
traumatize them some other way. But I think the challenge of a parent is you want to prepare your kids for what they will have. No one's going to get through life without encountering adversity and challenges.
And uncertainty. Bad
things happen and uncertainty. And the best thing you can do for your kids is to try and give them the tools they need to be strong people so they can withstand those times, get through those times without resorting to drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do, and hopefully we'll be successful. But that's, as parents, I think that's what everyone wants to do. There's one thing I know for sure: you're not gonna get through life without encountering adversity.
Yeah.
So you might as well accept that fact and try to make yourself strong enough and give yourself the strength to be ready. And that's something that we actively do every day with our kids to try and give them that.
Well, you both are such, I think role models for so many people. I mean, I applaud you. I really felt your book, One Good Reason, was an extremely great read. Where can our listeners connect with both of you and be part of your community and learn more about your work?
On Sean's website, sean-mccann is where we both live. I don't have my own because that's ridiculous. Because that would just be ridiculous. But yeah, I try to answer all the emails or messages that we get. And you can get the book on that website. We can personalize it and sign it for you on that website, or you can get it at any of the outlets there in the States, whether it's Barnes & Noble or Amazon or any small independent bookstore. Yeah,
more on Facebook, Great Big Sean, and Sean McCann Sings everywhere else, right?
Yeah, on Twitter and all the handles.
We don't have Snapchat or TikTok yet.
Nobody wants that.
I don't know how many social medias is enough. I have 3 is enough.
We're old. We're not gonna get TikTok.
I'm threatening to get TikTok, but my kids are like, they're afraid I'll actually do it. They'll be embarrassed. I don't know. I just don't have the time for any more of it, to be honest with you. I'll stick with your podcast.
Yeah.
Well, Sean and Andrea, thank you both so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, lovely to talk to you, Marianne, and thanks for reading the book. Thanks for sharing.
Well, thank you so much, Sean and Andrea. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, One Good Reason, a memoir of addiction and recovery, music and love. One Good Reason's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. And of course, it's available on Kindle. Again, if you'd like to get a personalized copy of the book, you can at sean-mccannsings.com for more information. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.